All right, we got Mary Kay. Let's not talk about my
G-Bush,
wedding.
you feeling good?
You want to move on, right?
Moving right along, Mary Kay is available.
G-Bush.
Hi, Mary Kay. How are you? It's great to have you on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
Hi,
How you
Mary
doing,
Kay.
Mary Kay?
Hi guys, how you doing?
Mary Kay, did you ride your bike this weekend? What did you do? You do anything like that? Anything?
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't see me tooling around Rocky River all the time, Bull. I'm a walker. Oh, did you move out of Rocky River?
No.
You may have.
No, I still live
but
there.
yes, I'm a power walker, and I try to get out every single day.
Wait, by power walk, you mean
Yeah.
that like the speed thing where they move their hands really fast and one foot has to be on the ground at all times or whatever?
No, it's not that
Okay.
formal. I just go as fast as I possibly can.
I got it.
And I just try to keep motoring along.
Very good.
I never see you out there, but that's probably because I'm not out there, not you.
Has nothing to
That's
do with
more
your
likely.
routine. It's all about my routine.
So, Mary Kay, we were just starting the show talking about, it seems like for the last 2 weeks, just about every day or every other day, there was another nugget dropped in this story where you were trying to follow the breadcrumbs to see what's going on, but it seems like we've had a little bit of a lull here. Are we missing something? When was the last, I think the New York Times piece might have been the last really big revelation that we had. Am I right?
Yeah, that was probably the last, sort of development. But no, I think it might have been, it was after that Tony Buzbee pulled the Texans into this whole situation.
Right. Yeah.
And he's going to be adding them to the lawsuit. Now, he has not done that yet. That has not been formally filed. So I don't know if they're going through some discussions about that, some negotiations and talks about that. But yeah, that is not something that has necessarily been done yet.
Mary Kay, from your perspective, are you surprised that Deshaun has not spoken again since he had that initial press conference? And how hard, if he just said, hey, listen, let's say he speaks again and he says, are you guys ready to talk to him about football? Or can you not even go there? Is there a balance? What do you think at this point?
You know what? I am not surprised he hasn't talked yet. I thought that they would probably do this, where he had the initial press conference, and then we probably wouldn't hear from him again until the mandatory minicamp. We've only had we've had really 3 availabilities each week of the OTAs, and I'm just not surprised because there wasn't much more that he was going to be able to say from a club standpoint that was going to help them really and not hurt them from a PR standpoint. So not overly surprised by that. I do think he probably will speak at one of these mandatory minicamp days. Starts tomorrow. That's out in Berea tomorrow. Then we head down to Canton for practice on Wednesday, then down to the stadium on Thursday. So I do think that he'll talk one of those days, although enough has happened since he last spoke, that they might just want to let him get out of town for that 6 weeks and maybe not have him address the media again.
Mary Kay, you are as connected a Browns beat reporter as there is. And we've been hearing rumblings over the last week that all of a sudden there's pessimism about how long the suspension is going to be. Mike Florio, who in my opinion talks out his ass a lot, last week said the Browns are regretting this trade now. If anybody would know, it's you. Do you believe that they are now regretting this trade, and are they now worried that the suspension is going to be longer than they thought it would be when they first acquired him?
Well, first of all, after all of this stuff came down, last week, the week before that, I did talk to sources that told me the Browns are still all in on Deshaun Watson. They're not thinking about trying to void the contract or to try to go back to the Texans and say, hey, you knew things. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. But from as far as I can tell right now, the Browns do not have any regrets. They still feel like they're going to be okay with this as they move forward. Now, that could change if criminal charges are filed and if anything major happens. But these last 2 lawsuits did not do anything to get them off of their mark. And I actually even talked to Deshaun Watson's lawyer, Rusty Hart, and he said he's been assured by the Browns that they are still all in on Deshaun. So I think right now it's all systems go. As for the second part of that question, I do sense a vibe that some people close to the situation are starting to fear that it could be a lot longer than they thought. I think initially we all thought, and maybe people in Deshaun's camp thought, that it would probably be somewhere around perhaps 6 games, maybe even 8 games. But now I do think that there's starting to be at least a concern that it could be up to a year.
Mary Kay, one of the contingency plans is to have Jacoby Brissett as the backup quarterback to take over if Deshaun Watson is suspended for a long-term period of time. But one of the things I keep hearing now, and I kind of dismissed it, but I think this is kind of interesting, is the thought process that the Browns possibly could move Baker Mayfield to Carolina for Sam Darnold and maybe a late-round pick. I guess the money makes sense. They both make around the same amount of money. And if you do have Jacoby Brissett for a whole entire year, is Sam Darnold a better backup than what Josh Dobbs would be, who doesn't have any experience, right? And after that, obviously Sam Darnold will beat off the books. But is there any thought process where that could be a possible move or a possible swap for the Carolina Panthers and the Cleveland Browns?
You know what? I have not been able to corroborate that yet. I've seen the rumblings. I've seen people speculating that is something that could happen. And I can't honestly say that I know for sure that that's something that has been discussed or talked about, but it would seem to make some sense. The only reason why you might not do it is because in the event a team loses a starting quarterback before the trade deadline in late October, I think you would have a much better chance of trading Baker Mayfield to that team for something decent than you would Sam Darnold. But if you just want to get Baker Mayfield off the books, out of town, and close the book on this and end this chapter, then it is something worth exploring. Again, I don't know yet if they've had substantive talks about actually doing this. I still am digging into that a little bit. But, just in terms of ending the lunacy of having Baker Mayfield around here, I think it's something worth exploring.
So, Mary, let me ask you a question, because you're very well respected in this game. And you understand being around. I don't know how you stay sane in the professional sports world, because how insane it can be. But I'll just tell you this: to me, from this standpoint, it looks like if they wanted to do that with Baker Mayfield, they would have done it. They would have gotten him out of here from the beginning, right? So somebody over there sees something, and what do you think the chances of them just waiving him are now? I see that running around here in the media. They may just waive him. I don't see that happening, but what do you think?
I don't think so. And I've written that a number of times, that they wouldn't do that because it just doesn't make a lot of sense for them, even, just financially. They would still have to pay the $18.86 million minus whatever a new team would pay him in that scenario. A lot of people don't really understand that part of it either. But if a new team does sign Baker Mayfield and pays him, $2-3 million a year, that would come off the $18.86 million. So there would be that. But it really eliminates the opportunity to trade him in the event that a quarterback does go down in training camp. And that could happen. I mean, these guys, they tear ACLs even in non-contact injuries. So if a team that feels it can go to the playoffs loses a quarterback over the summer or in the early part of the season, you have an asset, and all you have to do is pick up the phone and try to make that trade. So that would be one major reason why you would not just let him go, and I do not think that they will.
And let me ask you this: if they had not told Baker to stay home, was Baker coming to this camp? Was he coming? No. Do you think he would have showed up?
He may have, because they would have had to have done something a little creative, like keep him at the facility while they're outside on the practice field, or just not have him. I mean, could you imagine him touring the Hall of Fame next to Deshaun Watson? It would have been very awkward and weird. So if he had shown up, I think that they would have maybe treated it like they do some of the other injured players, such as a Jack Conklin, where you're not going to be out there on the field. You'll be in working with trainers and rehabbing his fully torn labrum, his surgically repaired left shoulder. So they would have found a way to make it equitable for everyone. But this just is a little bit of a cleaner operation.
So was there concern that he was going to show up?
Yeah, I think he probably would have shown up rather than give up $95,000, which is what he would have been fined for these 3 days. So Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if he showed up and just decided he wasn't going to give them back any money.
Okay.
Mary Kay, going back to the original discussions to bring in Deshaun Watson, we all remember how that unfolded. It looked like Watson had ruled the Browns out and they weren't going to be the team that won that sweepstakes. Can you take us through what was going on inside the organization? Who was driving the bus to get this deal done? Was it Andrew Berry? Was it Stefanski? Was it the Haslams? How did this thing get reinvigorated, and who in your mind was the architect to really making sure this happened?
Well, we've been told over and over again that it was the personnel department, that it was Andrew Berry that was driving the bus on this. I think when it came to the financial part of it, obviously Jimmy Haslam has to sign off on that and make sure that he's willing to do that blockbuster deal, which is the reason why it got done. Because other teams that were in it, Deshaun had those teams higher on his list until the money came in from the Cleveland Browns. So Jimmy had to be a huge part of that. I do think that it was an organizational consensus. There's no way that you're going to do something like this unless Kevin Stefanski wants to coach him, unless Andrew Berry wants him to be their quarterback of the future, unless the quarterback's coach is in on it and the Haslams are comfortable. And again, it was D. Haslam, Jimmy. They talked things over again with their daughters. Their daughter Whitney is part of the organization. So I think they were all in agreement that this was the right chance to take and that it would work out from a football standpoint.
Mary Kay, at some point, Deshaun Watson will be on the field. At this point, we don't know if it's going to be this year, but at some point he will. Kevin Stefanski has been criticized at times for being, sticking with his offense and his system. But obviously he's got to change because Deshaun Watson has a significantly different skill set than Baker. How different will this offense look once Deshaun Watson is leading the way?
I think it will look significantly different. We can already see those changes in camp. They're running some different things. There will be more 3 wides. There will be fewer, probably 3 tight end sets. It won't be as heavy of an offense as it has been in the past. It will be more explosive, more high flying. The OTAs was treated as a passing camp, and you could see they just repped pass after pass after pass. Now, of course, you still have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and you're not going to turn your back on those guys, and you don't need to. I mean, one of the hallmarks of a great passing game is to have a terrific running game to go along with it and to set things up. So there will still be plenty of play action. There will be bootlegs, rollouts, but there will be a lot of things that Deshaun does really well. You can really blend the run and the pass when you have a quarterback that can do both. And so they will take advantage of that. They will not shy away from him running the ball. They will have designed runs. There'll be a lot of downfield passing, but I think you'll just see a much more explosive passing game.
Mary Kay, I saw today that the Cowboys are talking about using Tony Pollard, their good number 2 running back, in the slot. We've been talking about getting Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb on the field at the same time with this new offense with Watson. Do you think we'll see that?
I think you'll see that, yes. And we actually have seen some of it in OTA. So I think there will be more opportunities to do that. And if you're going to be focusing more on the pass, why not use Kareem Hunt, again, in the slot, split out wide, and all the different things that he can do. So I do think that we ultimately will see more of that. And I think Deshaun will be able to take advantage of his skill set.
Mary Kay, we look at these young guys at receiver, and it looks like the Browns are going to give them an opportunity to play. David Bell, they want to see what Anthony Schwartz has. Is there a thought process that if those guys don't get off to a fast enough start, and it may look like, hey, Jacoby Brissett's in there at quarterback, and we do need more veterans that can really, something more guaranteed. You think the Browns are open to bringing in another receiver just to kind of, hold the ship down, so to speak, if Deshaun Watson doesn't play in the first 8 to 12 games?
So far they haven't really wanted to do that. It's just not something that has been on their radar. They're looking at their passing game and their pass catchers globally. So they're not looking at it just in terms of the receivers. They do feel they have experienced pass catchers in Amari Cooper. And then you move over to the tight ends, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, Kareem Hunt that we've already talked about. So I don't think they're looking at it like, geez, we don't have anybody behind Amari who's experienced enough to get the job done. Having said that, I think that, they have been banking on Deshaun Watson being the one to get the ball to all of these guys. So therefore, they don't feel like they need a bunch of superstar receivers, that he will make those guys look good, that he will bring David Bell up the learning curve. Same thing with Anthony Schwartz and Donovan Peoples-Jones. So as of right now, I haven't sensed any urgent need to go out and get another veteran receiver.
Hey, Mary Kay, it's June, and you know how that can be when you're trying to turn stories and create content. We've got a lot of time to fill. So in our super unofficial and not very brilliant NFL football lab here on the set, last week we devised this idea that maybe, because he's one of the most freakish athletes we've ever seen, maybe there's an offensive package for Myles Garrett where either he lines up as a tight end and you throw him the ball, or you put him in the backfield on third or fourth and short, whether it's goal line or first down that they're working for. Are we crazy, or is there ever a chance that the Browns might use this super freak of an athlete on offense?
Well, I mean, it does sound a little bit out there, but as you mentioned, I mean, he is a tremendous, tremendous athlete. And, we've all seen him dunk the basketball and do all the different things that he can do. And if he wanted to do something like that, and he went to Kevin Stefanski or Joe Woods or any of those coaches and said, hey, I would love to do that. I'd love to run the ball. I'd love to catch the ball in the end zone. They probably would put something in for him. Right now, I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. And he's got enough on his plate with trying to become the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. But if it's something that Myles really wanted to try, I'm sure that they would give him the chance.
I wouldn't want to have to try to stop him.
Let's do it.
I can tell you that.
Yeah.
We've got McNuggets. Throw that video that you were just telling me about in here. And so, Mary Kay, you may have seen this, but Myles throwing some. In fact, you were standing right next to him, I believe, or in the vicinity when he was throwing footballs.
Mary Kay's in the video.
Mary Kay, what do you think? Maybe he's the world's largest quarterback.
From him?
Maybe he can do it all. Yeah, I was there for that. I took some video of my own, so I might show up in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a lot of fun with the kids, so that was a fun event to be at. But I mean, you could just look at him right there. I mean, my goodness, he is a freak of nature, and he can do it all. So if they have something up their sleeve, then they should certainly try it, especially if Deshaun Watson is out for a bunch of games.
Mary Kay, real quick before you go, I know you got to go. Power walking competition amongst the Browns beat reporters. Who would I mean, most of the Browns beat reporters are, worse shape than me. Who would you be most worried about in the competition competing with there? Browns beat. Who would give you a challenge?
That's a good one. Well, our own Ashley Bastock, I know she rides her Peloton every single day.
Yeah.
And she is actually a former Division III basketball player.
Oh, really?
At John Carroll. So and she is just a couple years younger than me. So she could probably kick some behind in a power walking competition.
Fair enough. She looks like an athlete. I think the guys would all be passing out in 30 seconds. Thanks, Mary Kay.
Yeah, Mary Kay, thanks so much for joining us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.